The wealthiest people in the world have figured out something that most people never even realize exists, a set of psychological tricks that convince both the rich and the poor that inequality is fair, natural, and deserved. These aren't tricks that require conspiracy meetings or explicit coordination. They operate through the normal functioning of human psychology and are so effective that most people defend the very systems that disadvantage them. Understanding these tricks is essential because they keep inequality intact more effectively than any law or rule ever could. The illusion of meritocracy, the most powerful psychological trick, is the belief in meritocracy. This is the conviction that status in society is based on merit, that people are rich because they are talented, intelligent, and hardworking, and that people are poor because they lack these qualities. This belief is so deeply embedded in Western culture that most people accept it without question. Yet it is fundamentally false. Research demonstrates that when meritocratic beliefs are made salient, even disadvantaged people psychologically justify their own disadvantage by decreasing perceptions of discrimination and by stereotyping themselves in ways that justify their lower status. The beauty of this trick is that it works on everyone. A wealthy person can believe they earned every penny through merit and hard work. They do not need to examine structural advantages, inherited wealth, or access to networks. They do not need to acknowledge luck or timing. They simply believe they deserve what they have. Simultaneously, a poor person can believe that their poverty reflects a personal failing. If they were just smarter, worked harder, or had more talent, they would be rich. Neither person needs to acknowledge that the system itself is rigged. Both are satisfied that everything is as it should be. When people are presented with meritocratic messaging, which is constant in schools, media, and culture, they become more accepting of inequality, even when that inequality directly harms them. This is the psychological trick at the heart of the American dream. It tells people they have control over their outcomes. It tells them to blame themselves, not the system. The justification of the status quo, psychologists call this phenomenon system justification theory. It is the tendency of people, including those who are disadvantaged by the system, to rationalize and defend the status quo as fair, legitimate, and inevitable. This is not rational self-interest. It is a deep psychological need to believe that the world is just, that things are as they should be, and that powerful authorities and institutions are benevolent. This need is so powerful that disadvantaged people sometimes defend the system more vigorously than advantaged people. A person living in poverty might argue against welfare programs or progressive taxation, policies that would directly benefit them, because they have been psychologically convinced that the system is fair. They rationalize poverty as deserved, and they rationalize wealth as earned. This allows them to avoid the cognitive dissonance of acknowledging that they live in an unjust system. It is psychologically easier to blame themselves than to accept that the system is fundamentally broken. The wealthy exploit this tendency intentionally or unintentionally. They promote stereotypes that justify inequality. The stereotype of the poor but happy versus the rich but stressed allows people to think that despite inequality, there is some cosmic balance. The poor might have less money, but they have simpler lives and are happier. The rich might have money, but they are isolated and unhappy. These compensatory stereotypes make inequality seem acceptable because at least the poor are not missing happiness itself. The attribution trap. Wealthy people engage in what psychologists call dispositional attribution. This means they explain inequality by pointing to individual characteristics, intelligence, work ethic, talent, rather than circumstances or context. When a wealthy person sees a homeless person, they think that person must be lazy or mentally ill or addicted. They do not think about unequal schools, unequal access to jobs, discrimination, or the simple fact that some people are born into families with resources. Crucially, this attribution style becomes more pronounced the wealthier someone is. Research shows that upper-class individuals are more likely to see the world through a lens of personal control and individual agency. They experience lives of enhanced wealth, personal freedom, and social opportunities. This leads them to believe that outcomes are determined by individual choice and effort. They see a world where people get what they deserve because they have the freedom to create that world. Meanwhile, lower-class individuals, having experienced less freedom and more external constraints, are more likely to recognize contextual factors. They see structural barriers because they hit them constantly. But the psychological trick works in reverse on them. They accept the wealthy person's explanation for their own disadvantage. They internalize the message that their poverty reflects their own failings. They blame themselves. The power of denial, Perhaps the most effective psychological trick is simple denial. The wealthy are far less likely to acknowledge the role of luck, privilege, and circumstances in their success. Studies show that wealthy people consistently attribute their success to hard work and talent, while downplaying luck, timing, and inherited advantages. When confronted with evidence of inequality, they rationalize it. This denial serves a psychological function. If a wealthy person acknowledged that much of their success came from circumstances beyond their control, being born into a wealthy family, happening to start a tech company in Silicon Valley at the right moment, benefiting from discrimination against other groups, they would need to confront uncomfortable truths about fairness. It is psychologically easier to deny these factors and maintain the belief that they earned everything. The wealthy also use control over institutions to reinforce these narratives. They fund think tanks that promote meritocratic ideology. They control media that amplifies stories of self-made billionaires. They shape education to teach the values and beliefs that legitimize their wealth. These are not conspiracies. They are normal operations of power. People with power naturally create institutions that reflect their worldview. The self-perpetuating system, the genius of these psychological tricks, is that they become self-sustaining. Once people believe in meritocracy and the justice of the system, they resist change. Disadvantaged people oppose policies that would help them because they believe the system is fair. Advantaged people oppose redistribution because they believe they earned what they have. Both groups work to maintain the status quo, each for their own psychological reasons. When the system faces threats, like protests or demands for change, people actually increase their system-justifying beliefs. They cling harder to the idea that things are fair. They double down on stereotypes. They retreat into denial. It is a homeostatic system. The more evidence of injustice, the more people defend the system as just. This is why inequality persists despite being obvious to anyone who looks. It is not just that the wealthy have money and power. It is that both the wealthy and the poor have been psychologically manipulated into accepting and defending a system that primarily benefits the wealthy. The poor defend the system because they have been convinced it is fair. The wealthy defend it because they have convinced themselves they deserve their advantages. Breaking through the illusion, understanding these psychological tricks, is the first step toward seeing through them. Once you recognize that meritocracy is largely a myth, that system justification is a psychological tendency, and that the wealthy use denial and institutional control to maintain their worldview, you can begin to question the narratives you have been told. You can recognize that poverty is not a personal failing, that wealth is not purely earned, and that inequality is not inevitable. The wealthy stay untouchable not because they are actually superior or because the system is actually just. They stay untouchable because both the rich and poor have been psychologically convinced to accept and defend a fundamentally unjust system. The trick is so effective because it operates through normal human psychology. It does not require explicit conspiracy. It simply requires that people rationalize inequality and justify the status quo, and humans are psychologically inclined to do exactly that. Recognizing this is how you start to resist it.